Welcome. If you found your way here tonight, then something in you was looking for a little quiet. Maybe the day was long. Maybe your mind is still moving a mile a minute, even though your body is done. Maybe you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't always reach. That deep, bone-level tired. I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we're going on a slow, gentle journey together, down into the deep ocean, where the world is dark and still and impossibly calm. A place where time moves differently, where creatures drift and glow and rest in the silence of the sea. Settle in, get comfortable, and before we begin, drop a comment and let me know what time it is where you are. What are you letting go of tonight? And if this kind of peace is something you want to return to, consider subscribing. This channel will always be here, waiting whenever you need rest. Take a moment to settle. Let your body sink a little deeper into wherever you're resting. Feel the weight of the day begin to release, not all at once, but slowly. The way breath leaves the body on a long exhale. You don't have to figure anything out right now. You don't have to solve anything, or plan anything, or be anywhere other than exactly where you are. The ocean is vast and ancient and unhurried. Tonight, let yourself be carried by it. Let your thoughts grow slow and soft, like water moving around stone. You are safe. You are still. And the deep sea is waiting. The deep ocean. Far below the surface of the sea, where sunlight has never reached and never will, there is a world of extraordinary stillness. The water here is cold and heavy, pressing down from above in a silence so complete that it has its own texture, dense and dark and absolute. This is the deep ocean, sometimes called the midnight zone or the abyssal plain, a place that covers more of our planet than any other habitat, and remains, even now, one of the least explored places on Earth. To descend here is to leave the familiar world entirely. The colors fade first, reds and oranges disappearing within the first few meters of the surface, then yellows, then greens, until all that remains as you sink deeper is a dimming blue that grows darker and darker until it becomes nothing at all. By the time you reach 500 meters, 600 meters, 1,000 meters, you are in a world of pure blackness. And yet, life thrives here. Strange, luminous, impossibly adapted life. Creatures that have found a way to exist in the cold and the dark and the pressure, moving through the water with a grace and a slowness that feels almost like dreaming. The Midnight Zone. The Midnight Zone begins at around 1,000 meters below the surface and stretches down to 4,000 meters. Here, the pressure is so immense that it would crush a human body instantly. And yet the animals that live here carry that pressure as easily as you carry the weight of air. They have evolved over millions of years to belong here, their bodies shaped by the dark, their movements calibrated to a place where energy is scarce and patience is everything. Many of them spend their days, if days can be said to exist in a place with no light, drifting, simply drifting, hanging in the water column with the slow, unhurried patience of creatures that have no need to rush. There is no sun here to mark time, no tide to follow, no dawn or dusk, just the quiet, endless dark, and the soft, slow drift of life going on. The bioluminescent deep. One of the most extraordinary things about the deep ocean is the light. Not sunlight, there is none, but light that the creatures themselves create. This is called bioluminescence, and it is one of the most widespread forms of communication on our planet, even though most of us never see it. Down in the dark, creatures produce cold light through chemical reactions inside their own bodies, and the effect, if you could be there to witness it, would be like watching an entire galaxy suspended in water. Tiny flashes, long, slow pulses of blue and green, trails of light left behind as something moves through the black. It is one of the most peaceful sights imaginable. Living light in a world of darkness, quiet and constant and endlessly gentle. The anglerfish. Perhaps the most iconic resident of the deep sea is the anglerfish, a creature that has become almost synonymous with the strange beauty of the midnight zone. The female anglerfish, for it is the female who carries the famous light, drifts slowly through the dark water, trailing her bioluminescent lure in front of her like a tiny lantern. The lure hangs from a long, thin filament attached to her forehead, and it pulses with a soft, rhythmic glow, a light in the darkness, a beacon in the black. The anglerfish herself moves slowly, conserving energy, waiting. She is not rushing. She has nowhere to be. She drifts, and she waits, and she glows, and the deep ocean holds her in its cold, unhurried embrace. Her body is round and soft-looking, though she is all hard bone and tooth beneath her skin. Her eyes are small. She needs them less than surface fish do, for there is little to see down here except the dark and the occasional flicker of another creature's light. She is extraordinary in her way, patient and perfectly adapted, a creature of absolute stillness. The vampire squid, deeper still, in the coldest and most oxygen-depleted layers of the ocean, lives a creature with one of the most dramatic names in the animal kingdom, though its nature is anything but dramatic. The vampire squid, Vampiroteuthis infernalis, meaning vampire squid from hell, is in truth one of the gentlest creatures of the deep. It does not hunt like the squid of shallower waters. It does not pursue prey. Instead, it drifts slowly and serenely, using its long filaments to collect marine snow, the tiny particles of organic material that drift down from the surface like a continuous, silent snowfall. The vampire squid spreads its webbed arms like a dark umbrella, turning slowly in the water, and gathers what the ocean offers. It is a creature of pure patience. Its body is a deep, velvety red in some light and near invisible black in others, and when threatened, it does not flee. It simply curls its arms up over its body, turning itself inside out into a shape that looks like nothing so much as a small, dark flower. It is beautiful and strange and utterly peaceful. The marine snow. As you rest and drift in your imagination through the deep, it helps to picture the marine snow, those tiny particles that fall continuously from the surface world down into the abyss. They are the remains of algae and plankton, and small creatures from the sunlit zone above, slowly sinking through thousands of meters of water, drifting and tumbling in the faint currents of the deep sea. They catch any light they encounter and scatter it, so that sometimes, in certain patches of the deep, they create something like a slow, gentle blizzard, soft and silent and endless. The creatures of the deep depend on this snow. It is their food, their connection to the world above, the only trace that reaches them of the sun they will never see. They wait for it, and they gather it, and they are sustained by it. And all of this happens in the most extraordinary quiet. the giant isopod. Walking slowly across the floor of the deep ocean, you might come across a creature that looks like something from another time. A giant isopod, a distant relative of the pill bugs you might find under a rock in a garden, but grown to a startling size in the cold and the dark. Giant isopods can reach 30 to 40 centimeters in length, armored with overlapping plates, moving deliberately across the seafloor on 7 pairs of legs. They are scavengers, slow and patient, combing through the sediment for whatever organic material has drifted down from above. When they have eaten their fill, which in the deep ocean can be a rare and unpredictable event, they can go for extraordinary lengths of time without eating again, sometimes months or even years, sustained by the slow, careful metabolisms that the deep cold encourages. They move without urgency. They rest without anxiety. They are creatures entirely at peace with the pace of the deep ocean floor, and watching them in that imagined, restful way, there is something deeply calming about their unhurried progress through the dark. The Dumbo octopus. Near the seafloor, at depths of up to 5 kilometers below the surface, the Dumbo octopus moves through the water in a way that seems almost playful, almost impossibly gentle. Named for the large, ear-like fins on either side of its mantle, which it flaps to propel itself forward in a slow, graceful glide, the Dumbo octopus looks less like a creature of the abyss and more like something from a child's dream of the sea. Its body is soft and rounded, often a translucent white or pale orange, and it moves by beating its fins in a slow, rhythmic motion that looks almost like clapping, a small, quiet celebration of movement. Dumbo octopuses feed on small crustaceans and worms found on the sea floor, and they do so without the ink clouds and escape maneuvers of shallow water octopuses. Down here, there is no need for drama. There is only the slow glide, the gentle beat of fins, and the dark, quiet world below. The comb jellies. Floating through the water column at various depths of the deep ocean, the comb jellies, ctenophores, are perhaps the most ethereally beautiful creatures in the sea. They are not true jellyfish, though they look like them at first glance. Transparent, almost gelatinous, moving through the water with the most delicate of motions. What sets comb jellies apart are the rows of cilia that run along their bodies like tiny, beating combs. These cilia propel the creature through the water, and as they beat, they scatter light, creating shimmering, iridescent rainbows that run in waves from one end of the animal to the other. In the deep ocean, where any light is rare and precious, the display of a comb jelly is extraordinary. A living rainbow in the dark, slow and silent and achingly beautiful. They drift, they pulse, they create light from nothing, and they carry it with them through the black water. And there is nothing alarming or urgent about any of it. Just the soft, constant shimmer of a creature going about its gentle life. The sea cucumber. On the floor of the deep ocean, where the sediment is so fine it is almost like powder, the sea cucumber moves with an extraordinary slowness. It is a simple creature in some ways, a long, soft-bodied animal that ingests sediment, processes the organic material it contains, and expels what remains, moving through the sea floor the way a slow river moves through sand. Some species can be found in enormous numbers on the abyssal plain, resting against the sediment, barely moving, their tube feet making the smallest, most deliberate contact with the ground beneath them. They come in all kinds of colors: deep red, pale pink, yellow, almost translucent white. And some of them, when disturbed, release long, sticky threads from their bodies as a defense. But most of the time, they are simply still, resting in the cold and the dark, processing the world at a pace so slow it almost cannot be measured. They are, in their way, the most peaceful creatures imaginable. Nothing rushes them, nothing disturbs them. They exist in the deep quiet of the seafloor, and they are perfectly content. The sperm whale descent. From far above, from the sunlit surface of the sea, a shadow descends. Long and dark and immense, a sperm whale, the largest toothed predator that has ever lived, begins its dive into the deep. It is breathed at the surface, filling its great body with oxygen. And now it tilts its enormous head toward the dark and begins to sink. The whale clicks as it descends, a series of deep, resonant pulses that travel through the water in all directions, bouncing off the seafloor thousands of meters below, returning to the whale with information about the shape and depth of its world. These clicks can be heard by other whales for hundreds of kilometers. They fill the deep ocean with sound, but it is a slow sound, a rhythmic sound, a sound that pulses like a heartbeat. The whale descends in silence between its clicks, its body relaxed, its movements slow and controlled, drawn down into the dark by gravity and purpose. It can remain submerged for an hour and a half, sometimes longer, moving through the midnight zone in search of squid and fish. And then it rises again, slowly, unhurriedly, toward the light. The six-gill shark. Moving through the cold water of the deep ocean, the six-gill shark is one of the oldest living shark species on Earth, a creature so ancient that it predates the dinosaurs by tens of millions of years. It has changed very little in all that time. Its body is long and blunt-snouted, its movements slow and deliberate, its 6 gill slits, one more than most sharks, giving it a look that is somehow more ancient and more peaceful than the sleek hunters of shallower waters. The 6-gill shark drifts through the deep with the unhurried confidence of an animal that has survived every extinction event the planet has thrown at it. It moves at depths of up to 2,000 meters, descending during the day and rising toward shallower waters at night, following the great vertical migrations of the sea. But even in its movement, there is no urgency. It glides, it drifts, it turns in long, slow arcs through the dark water, and the ocean holds it the way the night holds everything, quietly, without judgment, without rush. The hydrothermal vents. Deep in the ocean floor, in certain places where tectonic plates meet and shift, there are hydrothermal vents, cracks in the seafloor where superheated water emerges from the Earth's interior, carrying minerals that build up into tall chimneys called black smokers. These vents create their own ecosystems, entirely independent of the sun. Here, bacteria use the chemicals in the vent water as their energy source, a process called chemosynthesis. And these bacteria form the base of a food web that includes tube worms, ghostly white crabs, tiny shrimp, and strange pale fish that hover in the warm water near the vents. The tube worms are perhaps the most striking. They can grow to over 2 meters in length, swaying gently in the warm current rising from the vent, their feathery red plumes absorbing the chemicals they need from the water. They have no mouths, no digestive systems. They simply sway and absorb and live, rooted to the seafloor in a place where sunlight has never reached, sustained by the warmth and chemistry of the earth itself. There is something deeply peaceful about the image. The slow sway of the tube worms, the rising cloud of mineral-rich water, the colony of creatures living quietly in their dark, warm world, the bioluminescent plankton at the very surface of the deep ocean, not in the depths, but at the boundary where light begins to fail. There are tiny organisms that create one of the most beautiful natural spectacles on Earth. Bioluminescent plankton, particularly the dinoflagellates, produce light when disturbed, when a wave passes, when something moves through the water, when a hand trails through the sea on a warm summer night. The effect is a blue-green flash, a spark of cold fire that lingers for a moment and then fades. At sea, in the right conditions, an entire wave might glow as it curls and breaks, a luminous blue curl of light in the darkness. A boat's wake becomes a river of cold fire stretching behind it into the night. The phenomenon is called the Milky Sea when it happens on a large scale, and sailors have described entering patches of ocean where the water glows in every direction, pale and constant and otherworldly, as if the sea itself has become a source of light. It is one of the most calming images in all of nature. The dark sea, the quiet night, and the slow, patient glow of 1,000,000 tiny creatures lighting the water from within. The fangtooth fish. Its name sounds alarming, but the fangtooth fish, named for the long, sharp teeth it carries even in its small body, is in truth one of the least threatening creatures of the deep sea. It is small, no more than 15 centimeters long, and it spends its time drifting through the dark water of the midnight zone, hovering and waiting with the patience of all deep sea creatures. Its large eyes are adapted to catch even the faintest traces of light, and its teeth, enormous relative to its body, lock together when its mouth is closed, keeping it from being able to completely shut its jaws. It looks fierce in photographs, but in life, in its world, it is simply another small creature going about the quiet business of survival in the deep. It drifts, it waits, it exists in the dark, and the dark holds it without judgment. There is a certain comfort in knowing that even the strangest creatures of the deep are, at their core, simply trying to live quietly, patiently, in the peace of the abyss. The seafloor sediment, far below, on the floor of the abyssal plain, the sediment is unlike anything found on land. It is extraordinarily fine, composed of the remains of millions of years' worth of marine life, the compressed dust of shells and bones and organisms that have been falling from above since long before humans walked the earth. This sediment is called ooze, calcareous ooze, made of the remains of tiny shelled creatures, or siliceous ooze, made from the glass-like remains of diatoms and radiolarians. It accumulates at an imperceptibly slow rate, perhaps a centimeter every 1,000 years in the deepest parts of the ocean, and it stretches across the seafloor like a vast, undisturbed plain, covering more of the Earth's surface than any other habitat. In some places, it has never been touched. It lies exactly as it fell, layer on layer, a record of the ocean's life going back millions of years. There is something profoundly calming about imagining that plain, the vast, quiet floor of the deep ocean, untouched and dark and perfectly still. The oarfish. In the deep ocean, rarely seen and almost never studied in its natural habitat, the oarfish moves through the water in a way that has terrified sailors and inspired sea monster legends for centuries. It is the longest bony fish in the world. Individuals have been found measuring up to 8 meters in length, though some accounts suggest they may grow even longer. Its body is long and ribbon-like, silver and shimmering, with a bright red crest running along its dorsal fin for its entire length. It moves through the water in a gentle, undulating wave, its body rippling from head to tail in long, slow sweeps. In the deep, this movement is mesmerizing, a long silver ribbon, glowing faintly, rippling through the dark water in complete silence. The oarfish does not rush. It does not need to. It moves through the deep at its own pace, unhurried and enormous and strangely graceful, a reminder that the ocean contains wonders that most of us will never see. The deep sea. Dragonfish. The dragonfish is small, only about 15 centimeters long, but in the deep ocean, it is remarkable for the delicate beauty of its bioluminescence. It produces light from a long, luminous barbel hanging from its chin, which it uses as a lure. But it also produces light from photophores, tiny light-producing organs, arranged in rows along its sides, and from special organs around its eyes that emit red light. Most deep-sea creatures cannot see red light at all, meaning the dragonfish has an invisible headlamp, a way of seeing in the dark without being seen itself. It moves slowly through the midnight zone, its lights blinking and pulsing in patterns that are still not fully understood, going about its ancient life in the deep. There is something poetic about a creature that carries its own hidden light, that sees in wavelengths invisible to others, that moves through the dark with its own private illumination. The dragonfish does not know it is extraordinary. It simply is. And in that simplicity is a kind of peace. The siphonophores. Among the most extraordinary organisms in the deep ocean are the siphonophores, colonial creatures that are not quite one animal, not quite many, but something in between. A siphonophore is a colony of individual organisms called zooids, each of which performs a specific function. Some move the colony, some feed it, some handle reproduction, some defend it. Together, they form a single, coherent entity that can reach extraordinary lengths. The largest known siphonophore, discovered in Australian waters, was estimated to be nearly 50 meters long, making it potentially the longest animal ever recorded. But despite their size, siphonophores are extraordinarily delicate, transparent and gossamer. They drift through the water in long, trailing spirals, their bodies catching any light and breaking it into faint, iridescent colors. They are among the most fragile creatures in the ocean, and among the most beautiful. Watching one drift through the deep water, that long, spiraling chain of transparent life, is to witness something that seems less like biology and more like art. Slow, fragile, luminous art drifting through the dark. The pressure of the deep. Let your mind rest for a moment on what it means to be so deep below the surface. At a depth of 1,000 meters, the pressure of the water above is 100 times greater than the atmospheric pressure at sea level. At 4,000 meters, it is 400 times greater. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, the pressure is more than 1,000 times what we experience in the air. And yet, life thrives. Small crustaceans have been found at the very bottom of the trench, moving through the deepest point on the planet's surface with the same casual ease with which a fly moves through the air. The deep ocean does not crush life. It shapes it. It selects for creatures that have made peace with their environment, that have adapted so perfectly that the very conditions that would kill any visitor from the surface are simply the water they swim in, the home they have always known. There is something deeply reassuring about that, about the idea that even in the most extreme places on Earth, life finds a way to be comfortable, to simply exist. The glass sponge on the rocky surfaces of the deep sea floor, attached to the substrate like quiet sentinels. The glass sponges grow. They're called glass sponges because their skeletons are made of silica, the same material as glass, woven into intricate, lattice-like structures of extraordinary delicacy and beauty. Some species form elaborate vase shapes. Others grow in irregular, branching forms. The most famous, the Venus flower basket, is a long cylindrical tube of woven glass filaments, so fine and so perfectly constructed that it looks like it was made by an artisan rather than grown by an animal. Inside some Venus flower baskets, a pair of small shrimp are often found. They enter the sponge when they are young and grow too large to leave, spending their entire lives inside that glass cage, fed by the water the sponge draws through its body. They are, in their way, perfectly content, safe inside their glass home, sustained by the ocean, living out their quiet lives in the deep. The Japanese have traditionally given Venus flower baskets as wedding gifts, as symbols of lasting partnership. Two creatures bound together for life inside something beautiful. The rat-tail fish, one of the most common fish in the deep ocean, is one that most people have never heard of. The rat-tail, or grenadier fish, a long-bodied, large-headed fish whose tail tapers to a thin, ribbon-like point. Rat-tails are found throughout the world's deep oceans, sometimes in large numbers on the abyssal plain, moving slowly across the seafloor in search of food. They have large eyes, adapted to the faint light of the deep, and they produce sound by vibrating muscles against their swim bladders, a soft, repetitive drumming that travels through the water as a low, constant pulse. In places where rat-tails gather, the deep ocean is not entirely silent. It is filled with the faint, slow percussion of these fish communicating with one another. A soft and rhythmic sound that seems entirely appropriate to a place of such vast and unhurried darkness. They move without urgency. They eat what the seafloor offers. They drum their quiet songs in the dark and go on living, as they have for millions of years. The deep ocean current. Far below the surface, the ocean is in constant, slow motion. The deep ocean circulation, sometimes called the thermohaline circulation or the ocean conveyor belt, moves water around the globe in enormous, slow loops, driven by differences in temperature and salinity. Cold, salty water sinks in the North Atlantic and the waters around Antarctica, sliding down to the seafloor and beginning a journey that will take it at an almost unimaginably slow pace around the entire planet. It takes roughly 1,000 years for a parcel of water to complete one full circuit. 1,000 years. The same water, moving slowly through every ocean on Earth, carrying with it the cold and the salt and the memory of the surface it left behind. This circulation is what keeps the deep ocean oxygenated, what carries nutrients from the surface to the depths and back again. It is the slow heartbeat of the ocean, the deep and unhurried rhythm that keeps the whole system alive. And imagining it, that vast, slow, circular movement of water carried out over centuries in the dark, there is something profoundly calming about it. Something that puts the pace of a single human life in gentle, restful perspective. The lanternfish. Among the most abundant vertebrates on Earth, though few people know they exist, the lanternfish are small, slender fish that carry rows of bioluminescent photophores along their bodies, creating patterns of light that are unique to each species, allowing them to recognize one another in the dark. During the day, lanternfish descend into the deep ocean, some to depths of 1,000 meters or more, spending the daylight hours in the cold and the dark. At dusk, they rise toward the surface in one of the great migrations of the sea, a movement so vast and so widespread that it can be detected on sonar as a rising layer of animals moving up through the water column like a slow tide. At dawn, they descend again, every day, every night, rising and falling with the rhythm of the light, following the sun they never see, drawn upward by the darkness and down again by the coming of the day. There is something beautiful and rhythmic about this, the great daily tide of small, luminous fish, rising and falling with the turning of the earth, the deep sea floor. Now let your mind drift down to the very floor of the deep ocean, the abyssal plain, spread out in every direction as far as you can imagine, flat and still and dark. The pressure here is absolute. The cold is absolute. The darkness is absolute. And yet it is not empty. The seafloor is covered with life, small, slow, patient life, adapted to the dark and the cold in ways we are only beginning to understand. Bacteria live in the sediment, breaking down organic matter that is settled from above. Sea cucumbers move across the ooze in their slow, deliberate way. Brittle stars extend their delicate arms into the water to catch passing particles. Small, transparent creatures drift just above the sediment, hovering in the faint currents that move along the floor. And everywhere, in every direction, the sediment lies undisturbed, a soft, ancient carpet of compressed time, holding the record of everything the ocean has ever done. It is the quietest place on Earth, the most still, and imagining it, lying here in the dark with your eyes closed, there is something about that absolute stillness that is like permission to stop moving, to stop thinking, to simply be still and dark and quiet, just for a little while. The firefly squid. In certain waters of the Western Pacific, there is a tiny squid, only 8 centimeters long, that performs one of the most beautiful light shows in the animal kingdom. The firefly squid, Wadacenia scintillans, covers its body with thousands of photophores, tiny light-producing organs that it can control with extraordinary precision, creating rippling, shifting patterns of blue-white light across its skin. During spawning season, firefly squid gather in enormous numbers near the shore, and on certain nights, the sea around Toyama Bay in Japan glows blue from the combined light of millions of these tiny creatures. They wash up on the beaches sometimes, each one glowing its quiet blue-white light in the sand before the tide retreats and takes them back, Fishermen have described the experience of pulling in nets full of firefly squid at night as like pulling up a net full of stars, a constellation of cold blue light shimmering in the dark water, each tiny squid pulsing in its own rhythm. It is one of the most extraordinary sights the ocean offers, and it happens quietly, without announcement, in the small hours of the night. The sleeper shark, moving slowly through the cold water of the deep Arctic and Antarctic oceans. The Greenland shark, also called the sleeper shark, is the longest-lived vertebrate known to science. These ancient, slow-moving sharks can live for more than 400 years. Some individuals alive in the ocean today may have been born before the invention of the telescope, before the Pilgrim Fathers set sail, before the last wolf in England was killed. They move at a pace commensurate with their extraordinary age, slowly, deliberately, without urgency. They are nearly blind, their eyes often partially obscured by a parasitic copepod, but they navigate by scent and by the electrical signals of living things. They cruise through the dark water of the deep in a state of almost meditative calm, feeding on what they encounter, doing nothing at all in a hurry. They have all the time in the world. They have had all the time in the world for 4 centuries. And in their slowness, in their ancient patience, there is something almost mythic. A creature that has seen more of history than any human and has simply gone on swimming quietly through the dark. The soft coral gardens, on seamounts, underwater mountains rising from the abyssal plain, and on the rocky edges of continental shelves, the cold water corals grow. Unlike tropical corals, these do not need sunlight. They grow in the dark, fed by the currents that bring nutrients down from above, and they can form forests of extraordinary beauty. Long branching trees of orange and white and pink, swaying in the slow current, hosting a community of fish and invertebrates that shelter among their branches. Some cold water coral reefs are thousands of years old, slow-growing structures built over centuries by tiny polyps, each adding its fraction of calcium carbonate to the collective structure. A forest of cold water coral in the deep sea is one of the most peaceful images in all of nature. Those slow branching forms, barely moving in the current, glowing softly against the dark. The fish that shelter among them move slowly. The invertebrates that live on their branches are still. Everything in a cold water coral garden exists at the pace of the deep, patient and unhurried, and quietly alive. The giant squid, deep in the ocean, in the darkness of the midnight zone, the giant squid moves through the water with a grace and a power that is difficult to imagine. These are the largest invertebrates on Earth. Females can reach up to 13 meters in length, their arms and tentacles trailing behind them as they cruise through the dark. But despite their size, they are rarely seen. They have never been filmed in their natural deep-sea habitat for long, just brief, precious glimpses captured by cameras lowered into the abyss on ropes that show a creature of extraordinary beauty and dignity. The giant squid has the largest eyes of any living animal, eyes 30 centimeters across, evolved to detect the faint bioluminescence of the deep ocean and to spot the silhouette of the sperm whales that hunt it. It moves by jet propulsion, drawing water into its mantle and expelling it in long, slow pulses, gliding through the dark in silence. It is a creature of the deep in every sense, shaped by darkness, adapted to pressure, belonging entirely to a world that humans are only beginning to know, the abyssal amphipods. At the very bottom of the deepest ocean trenches, in places where the pressure is so great it seems impossible that anything could exist, the amphipods, small, shrimp-like crustaceans, thrive. They gather in large numbers around any food source that reaches the trench floor. A piece of fallen fish, a whale carcass, anything organic, and they feed with a focused patience that is almost meditative. Hadal amphipods, as they are called, have been found in the Mariana Trench and in other deep trenches around the world, living their entire lives at depths that no light has ever reached, in water that is barely above, freezing, under pressures that are simply unimaginable from the surface. They are small and pale and translucent, their bodies adapted to the crush of the deep, and they go about their lives with a quiet efficiency that is, in its way, beautiful. They do not know. They live in the most extreme environment on the planet. They simply live. The deep sea eel. In the dark water of the deep ocean, the gulper eel, also known as the pelican eel, drifts through the midnight zone in one of the most striking forms in all of the sea. Its mouth is enormous relative to its body, a vast, hinged, loosely attached jaw that can open wide enough to swallow prey much larger than the eel itself. Its body tapers to a long, thin, whip-like tail that glows with a faint pink bioluminescence at its tip, and the eel sweeps this tail slowly through the water, using it as a lure to attract prey in the dark. The gulper eel moves through the deep water with a slow, undulating grace, its enormous jaw hanging loosely, its luminous tail trailing behind. It is unhurried. It has nowhere to be. It drifts and it glows and it waits as all deep sea creatures wait in the patient dark. The sound of the deep ocean. The deep ocean is not silent. Although there is no wind and no rain and no bird song, the deep sea has its own soundscape, a world of low, slow sounds carried over vast distances by the properties of the water. The clicks of sperm whales travel for hundreds of kilometers. The calls of baleen whales, long, resonant, deeply musical, travel even farther, some crossing entire ocean basins. There are the sounds of earthquakes transmitted through the seafloor, the slow creaking and groaning of tectonic plates shifting, the soft, constant hiss of the hydrothermal vents, the faint, rhythmic drumming of fish. It is a soundscape of slow, low, resonant sounds, sounds that seem to belong to a place outside of time, sounds that carry the weight of the deep and the vast. If you could hear the ocean floor from inside it, it would be like hearing the earth breathe, slow and deep and steady, a rhythm that has been going on for billions of years and will go on for billions more. The midnight zone, again. And now, let your mind return to the midnight zone, that vast, dark layer of the ocean between 1,000 and 4,000 meters below the surface. Imagine floating there, suspended in the cold, weightless and still. The pressure around you is immense, but you do not feel it. You are part of it, balanced and supported by the water itself. The darkness is absolute, but it is not frightening. It is simply the deep, familiar dark of the ocean's interior, the same dark that every creature here has known since the beginning of its life. Occasionally, something glows, a a slow pulse of blue-green light from somewhere below, a trail of faint luminescence left by something moving through the water, a brief, soft flash from a tiny creature disturbed by a passing current. And then the dark settles again, soft and absolute, and somehow comforting. The darkness of a place that has been dark for so long that darkness is simply its nature, its truth, its home. The blue whale. At the surface of the sea, far above the midnight zone, the blue whale breathes. This creature, the largest animal that has ever lived on Earth, larger than any dinosaur, larger than anything else that has ever moved across this planet, rises slowly to the surface, its vast body breaking the water with a sound like a distant explosion, and then rests there, floating, its huge back just breaking the surface. It breathes in a long, slow exhalation that sends a column of mist rising up to 9 meters into the air. And then it breathes in, a deep, resonant inhalation, filling its great lungs, and sinks again, slowly, back into the blue. Blue whales do not hurry. They move at a pace of around 8 kilometers per hour when feeding. Slow and deliberate, gliding through the water, filtering the tiny krill that sustain their enormous bodies. Their heart beats 8 to 10 times per minute. Their movements are slow and vast and impossibly graceful for something so immense. And when they call to one another, those low, resonant calls that travel across ocean basins, the sound is the lowest and loudest produced by any animal on Earth. It is a sound that is felt more than heard, a deep, slow vibration in the chest, the whale fall. When a whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, it begins one of the most remarkable processes in the deep ocean, a whale fall. The enormous body, thousands of kilograms of organic material, descends slowly through the water column, drifting in the slow currents of the deep, and when it finally settles on the seafloor, it begins a process of transformation that can last for decades. In the first stage, mobile scavengers, hagfish, sleeper sharks, rat-tail fish, arrive and begin consuming the soft tissue, working slowly and methodically, removing the flesh from the bones over months and years. In the second stage, smaller organisms colonize the remaining bones and tissues, breaking down the remaining organic matter. And in the third stage, the sulfophilic stage, the bones themselves begin to decay, releasing sulfides into the sediment, and bacteria colonize the bones in vast numbers, creating a chemosynthetic ecosystem that can last for decades. A single whale fall can support a community of over 400 species, providing a sustained source of food in the otherwise sparse abyssal plain. In this way, the whale's death is also a gift, a long, slow contribution to the life of the deep, a nourishment that continues for decades after the last breath. There is something profoundly moving about this, the idea that even in death, the largest creature on Earth continues to give, slowly and abundantly, to the darkness below. The midnight zone continued. Float again in the midnight zone. Nothing is urgent here. Nothing is pressing. The water holds you completely, cold and dark and utterly supportive. Your breath slows. The sounds of the surface world are far away, impossibly far, separated from you by a kilometer of dark water. Down here, there's only the faint, slow sound of the deep, the distant click of a sperm whale, the low resonance of a whale call passing through the water, like a wave of sound, the soft, almost imperceptible current moving through the dark. And then silence again. Pure, absolute, oceanic silence. The kind of silence that is not empty, but full of the patience and the age and the deep, dark peace of the sea angel. In the cold waters of the Arctic and Antarctic oceans, and in the deep waters between, a small, transparent creature drifts through the water with a movement so graceful it seems impossible. The sea angel, Cleona limatina, is a pteropod, a swimming sea slug, no more than 5 centimeters long. It has lost its shell entirely in the course of its evolution and replaced it with a pair of wing-like appendages, parapodia, that it beats in a slow, rhythmic motion to move through the water. The effect is of something very small, very pale, and very delicate, floating through the ocean as if in a dream. Its wings beating in a slow flutter, its body transparent enough that you can see through it, its movements unhurried and effortless. In the deep ocean, sea angels appear as small, luminous shapes drifting through the dark, their wings beating in the cold water, going wherever the current takes them. They are among the most beautiful things in the sea, small and fleeting and utterly peaceful. The hagfish. The hagfish is ancient. It has existed essentially unchanged for 300 million years, predating the dinosaurs by more than 70 million years. It has no jaw, no true backbone, and no scales. Its body is long and eel-like, covered in smooth, soft skin, and it moves through the water in a slow, sinuous glide. When threatened, it produces extraordinary quantities of thick, sticky slime, enough slime to clog the gills of a fish attempting to eat it. But in the deep ocean, the hagfish is simply a quiet, slow-moving scavenger, finding its food by scent in the dark, burrowing into the bodies of dead or dying animals and consuming them from the inside, slowly and methodically. It has survived every mass extinction the planet has experienced. It has outlasted creatures of every description, and it goes on in the deep dark, as it always has, quietly, slowly, with the patience of something that has learned that nothing, in the end, cannot wait. The bioluminescent bay. This is not the deep ocean, but it belongs to the same family of wonders, a place where the water itself seems to glow. Bioluminescent bays exist in a handful of places around the world, in Puerto Rico, Jamaica, the Maldives, where conditions are exactly right for enormous concentrations of bioluminescent plankton to gather. On dark nights in these bays, every movement in the water creates a flash of blue-white light. A hand trailing through the water leaves a trail of light. A fish darting beneath the surface creates a brief, bright streak. A kayak's bow pushes a small wave of luminous water before it. The water glows with every disturbance and then settles back into darkness. And on the darkest nights, with no moon and no artificial light, the water seems to breathe, a slow, soft, shifting glow that is barely there but unmistakably present, as if the bay itself were alive and softly, quietly illuminated from within. It is one of the most peaceful sights in all of nature. The glow of millions of tiny lives in the dark water, creating beauty without intention, without effort, simply because it is their nature. The narwhal. In the cold, dark waters of the Arctic Ocean, just below the ice, the narwhal moves through the water in a way that is both ancient and extraordinary. The narwhal, called the unicorn of the sea, carries a long, spiraling tusk that can grow to more than 3 meters in length. This tusk is actually an elongated tooth growing in a counterclockwise spiral from the left side of the upper jaw, and its function is still not entirely understood. What is clear is that the narwhal itself is a creature of extraordinary grace, its body pale and mottled, its movements slow and deliberate, its behavior quiet and cautious. Narwhals dive deep, sometimes to depths of more than 1,000 meters, descending below the ice to find fish and squid, spending extraordinary amounts of time in the cold dark beneath the Arctic. They surface at openings in the ice, breathing in the frigid air, and then they descend again into the blue-black cold. They are social creatures, moving in small groups. The sound of their calls, described as clicks and trills and whistles, rising and falling in the dark water beneath the ice as they communicate with one another in a language we are only beginning to learn. The stargazer fish. On the floor of the deep ocean, in the sandy sediment, the stargazer fish rests. It has buried itself completely. Only its eyes are visible, facing straight up toward the dark water above. The eyes of the stargazer are designed to see upward, to watch for the silhouette of something passing overhead, and the fish waits with extraordinary patience, completely still, completely concealed, watching the dark. It can remain in this position for hours. It does not shift or fidget or grow restless. It simply watches, upward, through the dark water, and waits. There's a kind of meditation in this, a complete, absolute stillness, a surrender to the moment, a trust that what is needed will come in its own time without being chased or forced. The stargazer fish has learned something that humans spend lifetimes trying to learn. Times the best thing to do is simply to be still and wait and trust the dark, the deep ocean, again. And so we return to the deep. We always return to the deep. It is the largest habitat on Earth and the least known, vast beyond imagining, dark beyond imagining, still beyond imagining. The creatures that live there have made peace with conditions that would seem, from the surface, to be impossible. They have adapted to the dark and the cold and the pressure in ways that are endlessly inventive and endlessly beautiful. They drift and they glow and they wait. They move in slow arcs through the black water. They pulse their bioluminescent light in patterns that no human eye was ever meant to see. They go about their ancient lives with a patience and a slowness that seems, from the busy, noisy world of the surface, almost like a kind of wisdom. Maybe it is wisdom, or maybe it is simply what life looks like when it has found its place, when it is exactly where it belongs, exactly as it has always been. Either way, the deep is there, patient and dark and endlessly alive, and it will be there long after all of this is over. The leafy sea dragon. In the shallower coastal waters off the coast of southern Australia, not in the abyss, but still in a world of slow, drifting peace. The leafy sea dragon moves through the seaweed and kelp with an almost supernatural grace. Its body is covered with leaf-like appendages that mimic the fronds of kelp perfectly, and as it drifts through the water, it is essentially invisible. A piece of seaweed moving with the current, indistinguishable from everything around it. The leafy sea dragon does not swim so much as drift. It moves so slowly and so smoothly that its motion is almost imperceptible. And watching one drift through a kelp forest is like watching a piece of the ocean think. It does not hurry. It cannot hurry. Its small, delicate fins would not allow it. Its simply drifts, carried by the current and by its own slow, small effort, going from one place to the next in the most unhurried way imaginable. There is something deeply restful about a creature that is perfectly camouflaged, that has made peace with its environment so completely that it has become a part of it. The night ocean. At the surface of the sea, after dark, the ocean takes on a quality that it does not have in daylight. The water is dark and flat or dark and gently rolling, and the only light is the light of the stars above and the faint, occasional shimmer of bioluminescence below. There is no horizon. The sky and the sea are both dark, and the line between them disappears, so that it feels, standing on the deck of a ship or lying on a beach, as if you are surrounded on all sides by the same vast, dark, gently breathing space. The sound of the ocean at night is different too. Lower, slower, as if the waves themselves have settled. The smell of salt and seaweed is stronger in the cool air. And if you're very lucky, you might see a whale surface nearby. A huge, dark shape in the dark water, breathing out a long, slow exhalation that hangs in the air for a moment, like a ghost, and then sinking again without sound. The night ocean is one of the most peaceful places on Earth. Not frightening in the way the darkness sometimes is, but deeply, profoundly still. A vast quietness that surrounds and holds you. The cuttlefish. In the shallow coastal waters around the world, the cuttlefish moves through the water with a grace and an intelligence that is extraordinary. It can change the color and texture of its skin in fractions of a second, producing rippling patterns of light and dark that move across its body in waves. Patterns that seem almost musical in their rhythm and their complexity. Cuttlefish use these patterns to communicate, to camouflage, to hypnotize their prey. But there is also something deeply meditative about watching the patterns flow across a cuttlefish's skin. The slow, rippling waves of color moving from front to back in a constant, changing rhythm. At night, cuttlefish sometimes settle on the seafloor and enter a state that appears very much like sleep. Their bodies still, their color changing slowed to an almost imperceptible pulse, their arms folded gently around them. And sometimes, during this rest, their skin changes color in rapid, flashing patterns, the way a sleeping human's eyes move during dreaming. It appears that cuttlefish dream. Whatever those dreams contain, the bright waters, the swift movements, the changing light of the day, they seem to be peaceful. The cuttlefish rests, and its sleeping skin tells stories of the world it has seen. The Great Barrier Reef at night. In the warm, shallow waters off the coast of Queensland, when the day's divers have returned to the surface and the boats have gone, and the reef has settled into the darkness, the night reef comes alive in a different way. The corals retract their polyps and close themselves against the dark. The parrotfish, which have spent the day grazing on coral, wrap themselves in a cocoon of mucus and sleep in crevices in the reef, a bubble of their own making that protects them from parasites and predators through the night. The sea turtles settle to the bottom and breathe very slowly, their metabolism slowed to a fraction of their daytime pace, conserving oxygen for the long night. And the creatures of the night emerge, small, delicate invertebrates that come out only in the dark, moving across the surface of the coral in careful, unhurried patterns. Octopuses hunt, changing color as they move, flowing across the reef with extraordinary grace. And above it all, the water is warm and dark and filled with the quiet sounds of the reef at night, the soft crackle of shrimp, the distant call of a whale, the gentle rush of water over coral. The midnight zone, once more. Come back to the midnight zone. Let it receive you. Imagine the water closing around you, dark and cold and supportive, not threatening, but simply present. The pressure is everywhere, and therefore nowhere you notice it. The darkness is complete, and therefore somehow restful. Your eyes have nothing to do, and so they close, and in closing, they give the rest of your mind permission to follow. The sounds of your day, the conversations, the noise, the worry, the things you left undone, they are at the surface, far above. They cannot reach this depth. Down here, there's only the slow, quiet pulse of the deep, the faint, distant click of a whale, the soft shimmer of a comb jelly passing by, the cold, unhurried current that carries you slowly, gently, through the dark. You are part of the ocean now, for this moment. You drift, you breathe, you rest. The porpoise. In the gray-green water of the northern seas, a group of harbor porpoises moves through the waves with the quick, purposeful efficiency that is so characteristic of the smallest of cetaceans. They are shy creatures, shyer than dolphins, less inclined to approach boats or humans, content to go about their lives in the quiet offshore waters and the estuaries. They surface and breathe with a small, high-pitched puffing sound, not the dramatic blow of a great whale, but a small, quick breath, just enough to sustain them through their next dive. They seem always to be slightly preoccupied, focused on the business of finding fish, navigating the currents, keeping together as a group. But occasionally, they are seen resting, not sleeping exactly, but hovering just below the surface, barely moving, letting the small waves of the North Sea carry them gently. And in those moments of rest, they seem content. Small, round-bodied, gray-backed, with their gentle expressions and their quiet manner, resting in the cold water with a patience that is entirely their own. The cold light of the abyss, deep, deep below, in the Hadal zone, the deepest parts of the ocean's trenches. The cold is absolute, and the dark is absolute, and the light, when it exists at all, is only the cold blue of bioluminescence. Tiny creatures drift through this darkness, carrying their own light with them like lanterns. A small shrimp moves across the trench wall, its body faintly luminescent. A fish hovers in the water column, its photophores blinking in a pattern that identifies its species to others of its kind. And far below, on the very floor of the trench, where the pressure is impossible and the cold is at its most complete, small white creatures move in slow circles across the sediment, indifferent to the extremity of their environment, going about the quiet business of life in the deepest place on earth. Light in the darkness, motion in the still, life in the impossible. The deep ocean offers these things without ceasing, in every trench and on every plane, from the moment the ocean first formed until the moment it finally returns to stone. The sea otter at the surface of the cool Pacific, not deep, not dark, but part of the same great ocean. The sea otter floats on its back with a particular kind of ease that seems almost performative, as if it knows how completely it embodies the idea of rest. It lies on its back in the kelp, its small forepaws folded on its chest, rising and falling with the gentle swell. Sea otters wrap themselves in kelp to keep from drifting while they sleep, a practical solution that also looks, from a distance, as if the otter has tucked itself into bed. They float in groups called rafts, drifting together in the kelp forests, sleeping and grooming and resting in the gentle motion of the sea. A mother otter will rest with her pup on her belly, the pup too small and fluffy to float on its own, resting on its mother's chest while she lies on the water. The two of them rise and fall together with each slow swell, the pup asleep on the warmth of its mother, surrounded by the cold, gentle sea. The midnight zone, breathing. The deep ocean breathes, not in the way that we breathe, not with lungs and a chest and the felt sensation of air filling a body, but in the slow, vast way that the whole planet breathes, the way that water cycles and currents turn and nutrients rise and fall through thousands of meters of dark water over centuries. The midnight zone breathes in the slow fall of marine snow from above, and the slow rise of deep currents from below. It breathes in the movement of creatures vertically through the water column, the nightly rise of lanternfish and krill toward the surface, and their daily descent back into the dark. It breathes in the slow pulse of bioluminescence, the brief flashes and glows that mark the presence of life in the dark, and it breathes in the rhythm of the tides, felt even at 1,000 meters depth as a faint, slow pressure change. The moon's pull on the water, reaching all the way to the abyss. Everything breathes. Everything is in motion. And all of that motion is slow and ancient and unhurried and continuous, and it will go on long after every one of us has rested. The clam of ages on the floor of the deep ocean in the cold sediment of the North Atlantic, a quahog clam lies still. It has been lying in the same place, in this same sediment, filtering the water for nutrients for more than 500 years. The oldest known individual, an ocean quahog found in Icelandic waters and named Ming for the dynasty during which it was born, was 507 years old when it was collected. It had been born in the year 1509 during the reign of Henry VIII. It had been filtering the cold Atlantic water, slowly, patiently, for 5 centuries, growing by an almost imperceptible fraction of a millimeter each year, making no sound, making no movement beyond the slow, rhythmic opening and closing of its siphon, simply existing in the cold and the dark, with a patience so extreme it barely qualifies as patience anymore. It qualifies as simply being present, being alive, being without urgency or ambition, in the place where it was always meant to be. And so the deep continues. Segment repeat, the deep ocean. Far below the surface of the sea, where sunlight has never reached and never will, there is a world of extraordinary stillness. The water here is cold and heavy, pressing down from above in a silence so complete that it has its own texture, dense and dark and absolute. This is the deep ocean, the midnight zone and the abyssal plain, covering more of our planet than any other habitat, remaining to this day one of the least explored places on Earth. The colors fade first as you descend, reds and oranges gone within the first few meters, then yellows, then greens, until only a darkening blue remains, deepening to nothing at all. By 1,000 meters, the world is pure black, and yet life thrives here. Strange, luminous, impossibly adapted life. Creatures that have found a way to exist in the cold and the dark and the pressure, moving through the water with a grace and a slowness that feels almost like dreaming. The deep ocean holds them. It has always held them. It will always hold them. And tonight, in your own small, quiet way, you belong to the same vast world, resting in the dark, breathing slowly, held by the night. Segment repeat, the Midnight Zone. The Midnight Zone begins at around 1,000 meters below the surface. Here, the pressure is absolute, and the dark is absolute, and the creatures that live here carry both as easily as you carry the weight of air. They have evolved over millions of years to belong here, their bodies shaped by the dark, their movements calibrated to a place where energy is scarce and patience is everything. Many of them spend their lives simply drifting, hanging in the water column with the slow, unhurried patience of creatures that have no need to rush. There is no sun here to mark time, no tide to follow, no dawn or dusk, just the quiet, endless dark and the soft, slow drift of life going on. And this drifting, this patience, this being in the dark is not deprivation. It is simply another way of being alive, another way of being present, another way of resting in what is. Segment repeat, bioluminescence. One of the most extraordinary things about the deep ocean is the light. Not sunlight, there is none, but the light that the creatures themselves create. Down in the dark, organisms produce cold light through chemical reactions in their own bodies, and the effect, if you could be there, would be like watching an entire galaxy suspended in water. Tiny flashes, long, slow pulses of blue and green, trails of light left behind as something moves through the black, a comb jelly rippling its rainbow of iridescent color, a lanternfish blinking its row of photophores in the pattern that names it, a small squid pulsing its entire body with shifting blue-white light. It is one of the most peaceful sights imaginable. Living light in a world of darkness, quiet and constant and endlessly gentle. No urgency, no heat, only the cold, beautiful light of creatures communicating in the dark. Segment repeat. The anglerfish. The female anglerfish drifts slowly through the dark water, trailing her bioluminescent lure in front of her like a tiny lantern. The lure hangs from a long, thin filament attached to her forehead, and it pulses with a soft, rhythmic glow. She moves slowly, conserving energy, waiting. She is not rushing. She has nowhere to be. She drifts, and she waits, and she glows. Her body is round and soft-seeming, her eyes small. She needs them less than surface fish, for there is little to see except the dark and the occasional flicker of another creature's light. The rhythm of the lure is slow and steady. Pulse, pause, pulse, pause. A tiny clock in the darkness, measuring time not in seconds, but in the patient intervals between light and the dark. The anglerfish knows nothing of urgency. She knows only the dark and the cold and the slow, rhythmic glow of the light she carries, and the waiting. Always the waiting. Segment repeat. The vampire squid. Deeper still, in the coldest and most oxygen-depleted layers of the ocean, the vampire squid drifts. Its body is a deep velvety red or near-invisible black, and it moves by spreading its webbed arms wide and turning slowly in the water, gathering marine snow, those tiny particles of organic material, that drift down from the surface like a continuous, silent snowfall. The vampire squid spreads its arms like a dark umbrella and gathers what the ocean offers. It does not pursue. It does not rush. It simply opens itself to what falls and receives what comes. When threatened, it curls its arms upward over its body, turning itself into a shape that looks like a small, dark flower. There is something deeply restful about the image, the dark flower in the darker water, closed and still and perfectly at ease. A creature that has learned to receive rather than to chase, to open rather than to reach, to wait for what is given rather than pursuing what is not. Segment repeat. The marine snow. The marine snow falls. It has always fallen. It falls now as you rest in every ocean on Earth. The tiny remains of algae and plankton and small creatures from the sunlit zone above, slowly sinking through thousands of meters of water, drifting and tumbling in the faint currents of the deep sea. They catch any light they encounter and scatter it, so that in certain patches of the deep, they create something like a slow, gentle blizzard, soft and silent and endless. It would take a particle of marine snow months to fall the full depth of the deep ocean. Months of slow, drifting descent through the dark, turning and tumbling and settling through layers of cold water, past creatures that barely notice its passage. Until, finally, it comes to rest on the seafloor, adding its infinitesimal contribution to the record of what the ocean has always been. The patience of that falling, the patience of that dark, slow descent through the cold. There is nothing more restful to imagine. Segment repeat. The Dumbo. Octopus. Near the seafloor, at depths of up to 5 kilometers below the surface, the Dumbo octopus moves through the water with its slow, graceful glide, its large, ear-like fins beating in a gentle rhythm, its soft, rounded body drifting forward through the dark. It is named for those fins, which give it the appearance of a small, gentle creature from a children's story. And in truth, there is nothing frightening about it at all. It is small. It is soft. It moves slowly and carefully across the deep sea floor, feeding on small crustaceans and worms. It glows faintly in some species, a soft, diffuse light that barely touches the dark around it. And it drifts on, unhurried and gentle, through the vast silence of the abyss, its fins beating their slow, soft rhythm in the cold, dark water. Thump, pause, thump, pause, a heartbeat of the deep. Segment repeat. The sea cucumber. On the floor of the deep ocean, where the sediment is so fine it is almost like powder, the sea cucumber moves with an extraordinary slowness. It ingests sediment and processes it and moves and does this same thing again, over and over, across the vast gray plain of the abyssal floor. It is not in a hurry. It will never be in a hurry. It lives at the pace of the deep. Geological time made biological. A creature so perfectly adapted to its environment that it has become, in some sense, part of the environment itself. Some sea cucumbers look at rest like nothing so much as a large, dark sausage lying on the seafloor, round and soft and still, barely distinguishable from the sediment around them. And in their complete, unashamed stillness, they are among the most restful creatures imaginable. They do not aspire to be anything other than what they are. They do not struggle against the dark or the cold or the pressure. They are entirely, perfectly at home. Segment repeat. The six-gill shark. Moving through the cold water of the deep ocean, the six-gill shark, one of the oldest living shark species, a creature that predates the dinosaurs, drifts through the dark in the long, slow arcs that are its natural motion. It does not hurry. It has not hurried in 300 million years. It moves at depths of up to 2,000 meters. Its blunt snout turned toward the current, its 6 gill slits opening and closing in a slow, rhythmic breath. Its eyes catch even the faintest trace of light. Its senses reach far into the dark around it, reading the electrical fields of living things, the pressure waves of movement, the chemical signatures of anything worth investigating. And having read all of this information, the 6-gill shark does what it always does. It continues forward at its own pace, in its own direction, through the dark, ancient and unhurried and utterly at ease. 300 million years of simply going on. Segment, repeat. The hydrothermal vents. Deep in the ocean floor, where tectonic plates meet and shift, the hydrothermal vents release their superheated, mineral-rich water into the cold abyss. The black smoker chimneys rise from the seafloor, trailing dark clouds of dissolved minerals into the water above. And around the vents, the community of creatures that depend on them goes about its slow, patient life. The tube worms sway in the warm current rising from the vent, their brilliant red plumes absorbing chemicals from the water, their long white bodies anchored to the rock below. They have no mouths, no digestive systems. They simply sway and absorb and live, and the shrimp cluster near the vent openings, moving in slow circles, and the pale crabs pick their deliberate way across the mineral formations, and the vent fish hover in the warm water, hanging in place with slow, small movements of their fins. All of them living in the warmth and the chemical richness of the vent, in a world that has nothing to do with the sun, sustained entirely by the heat and the chemistry of the earth itself. It is a closed world, complete in itself, needing nothing from above. Segment repeat. The glass sponge. On the rocky surfaces of the deep seafloor, the glass sponges grow, their skeletons of intricate, woven silica, forming structures of extraordinary delicacy and beauty. The Venus flower basket rises from the rock, its cylindrical body a lattice of glass filaments so fine and so perfectly woven that it catches and breaks any passing light into something resembling a continuous, very slow shimmer. Inside many of them, a pair of small shrimp lives, entered when they were young and too large now to leave, spending their entire lives inside that glass cage, fed by the water the sponge draws through its body. And they are perfectly content. They have everything they need: warmth, food, shelter, companionship. They do not need the open ocean. They do not need the wide dark. They have their glass home and the water passing through it and each other. There is something deeply, quietly beautiful about that, about a life reduced to its essentials and finding those essentials entirely sufficient. Segment repeat. The bioluminescent plankton. At the surface of the sea, on a warm, dark night, you might trail your hand through the water and find that it glows. The bioluminescent plankton, those tiny, single-celled organisms that produce cold light when disturbed, flash their brief, blue-white light at your fingers and then settle back into darkness. A wave breaks on the shore and glows as it curls. A fish darts below the surface and leaves a bright trail of disturbed water behind it. And on the open sea, far from shore, the milky sea phenomenon A steady, soft, all-encompassing glow from billions of bioluminescent bacteria turns the entire ocean into a source of cold, quiet light. Sailors who have seen it describe the experience as uncanny and beautiful and deeply, strangely peaceful, as if the sea had become a sky filled with its own stars, and the ship were floating, not on water, but through a vast, luminous, softly glowing universe, the light of living things in the dark. There is nothing more quietly extraordinary. Segment repeat, the deep sea floor. Let your mind drift down again to the very floor of the deep ocean, the abyssal plain stretching in every direction, flat and still and dark. The pressure here is absolute. The cold is absolute. The darkness is absolute. And yet it is alive. The seafloor is covered with life, small, slow, patient life, adapted to the dark and the cold in ways that continue to astonish. Bacteria live in the sediment. Sea cucumbers move across the ooze. Brittle stars extend their delicate arms into the water. Small, transparent creatures drift just above the sediment, and everywhere, in every direction, the sediment lies undisturbed, a soft, ancient carpet of compressed time, holding the record of everything the ocean has ever been, the quietest place on earth, the most still. And in that absolute stillness, if you let yourself rest in it, there's something that feels like permission. Permission to stop moving, stop thinking, stop doing. Permission to simply be still and dark and quiet, just for a little while, just as long as you need. Segment repeat, the sound of the deep ocean. The deep ocean is not silent. Low, slow sounds travel through the water, the clicks of sperm whales, the resonant calls of baleen. Whales crossing entire ocean basins, the slow creaking and groaning of tectonic plates, the soft hiss of hydrothermal vents, the faint drumming of fish. It is a soundscape of slow, low, resonant sounds, sounds that seem to belong to a place outside of time. If you could hear the ocean floor from inside it, it would be like hearing the earth breathe, slow and deep and steady, a rhythm that has been going on for billions of years and will go on for billions more. And your own breath, slowing now, finding its own rhythm, joins that sound, adds its small, human contribution to the vast, slow song of the deep. You breathe, the ocean breathes, and together, in the dark, everything rests. Segment repeat, the night ocean. At the surface of the sea, after dark, the ocean takes on a quality that it does not have in daylight. The water is dark and flat or gently rolling, and the only light is the stars above and the faint shimmer of bioluminescence below. There is no horizon. Sky and sea are both dark, and the line between them disappears, so that it feels as if you are surrounded on all sides by the same vast, dark, gently breathing space. The sound of the ocean at night is lower, slower, as if the waves themselves have settled. The smell of salt and seaweed is stronger in the cool night air, and if you are very lucky, a whale surfaces nearby, a huge, dark shape in the dark water, breathing out a long, slow exhalation that hangs in the air for a moment, and then sinking again without sound. The night ocean, not frightening, deeply, profoundly still, a vast quietness that surrounds and holds. You are held by it tonight, by the dark and the salt and the slow sound of the sea. The soft coral gardens again. On the seamounts and rocky shelves of the deep ocean, the cold water coral gardens sway. Their slow, branching forms orange and white and pink, extend into the water, barely moving in the deep current. A fish settles among the branches, finding its shelter for the night. A tiny crustacean picks its slow way along a coral branch, moving one careful leg at a time. The current moves through the coral garden in a slow, continuous flow, bringing nutrients, carrying waste away, keeping everything in the slow circulation that the garden depends on, and the coral itself, alive and ancient, built by countless generations of tiny polyps over centuries, simply grows, fractions of a millimeter per year, patient beyond anything we would call patience, growing in the dark, without seeing, without knowing, without intention, simply adding its fraction of calcium carbonate to the structure that has always been and will always be, and needs no reason beyond the fact that it is, and it grows, and that is enough. The octopus at rest. Somewhere on the seafloor, in a crevice in a rock, or beneath a ledge of coral, or simply tucked into a hollow in the sandy bottom, an octopus rests. Its arms are curled loosely around it, its body settled against the ground. Its skin, which changes color so rapidly and so dramatically when it is active, is now held in a single, resting pattern, pale and still, pulsing very slowly with a rhythm that might be the octopus equivalent of breath. Its large, intelligent eyes are closed, or nearly closed. It rests. It dreams, perhaps. There is growing evidence that octopuses undergo something resembling REM sleep, during which their skin flashes through rapid color changes, as if replaying or processing the experiences of the day. And then it settles again, and the colors slow, and the octopus returns to the stillness of deep rest. An 8-armed dreamer, curled in the dark, resting in the deep. The whale shark, in the warm, sunlit shallows of the tropical ocean. Not deep, but vast and slow and peaceful. The whale shark glides. It is the largest fish in the ocean, up to 12 meters long and weighing more than 20 tons, and it moves through the water in a slow, side-to-side swing of its great tail, its wide mouth open, filtering tiny plankton and fish eggs from the water as it travels. The whale shark does not hurry. It cannot hurry. Its great size and its filtering method of feeding require a slow, steady pace. It moves at around 5 kilometers per hour, barely faster than a person walking, and it covers enormous distances in this slow, steady way, following the plankton blooms and the warm currents across the tropical ocean. Divers who have swum alongside whale sharks describe the experience as one of the most profoundly peaceful they have ever had. The huge creature moving so slowly and so steadily, paying the diver no attention, simply going on in its unhurried way, its great spotted back rolling gently in the clear water. To be near a whale shark is to be near something that has no urgency at all, and that absolute unhurriedness is, somehow, contagious. The manta ray. In the warm blue water of the open ocean, the manta ray moves in long, sweeping arcs, its great triangular wings carrying it through the water in a motion that is less like swimming and more like flying. Manta rays can have wingspans of up to 7 meters, and when they move, they do so with an effortlessness that seems to defy their size. A slow, powerful, completely unhurried movement through the water that carries them forward without apparent effort. They feed on plankton, filtering the water through their wide, open mouths as they travel, and they sometimes gather in groups at upwellings, where plankton is abundant, circling in slow, overlapping loops in the clear water. A group of manta rays feeding together, those enormous, dark shapes sweeping in long circles through the blue, is one of the most peaceful sights in the ocean. There is no urgency, no competition, no aggression, just the slow, overlapping circles of enormous, graceful creatures gathering what the sea offers and returning to the blue, the beluga whale. In the cold, gray water of the Arctic, the beluga whale moves in a way that is different from all other whales. Flexible, curious, playful, its white body distinctive against the dark water and the dark sky. Belugas are called the canaries of the sea for their extraordinary vocalizations, clicks, trills, whistles, squeals, a vocabulary of sounds so complex and so varied that researchers are still working to understand it. They are social creatures, moving in pods, touching one another frequently, rubbing their bodies together, playing, and sometimes, particularly in the deep winter, belugas find a patch of open water surrounded by ice and gather there, dozens of them, their white backs just visible above the surface, breathing together in the dark Arctic night. The sound of their breathing, those soft, sighing exhalations rising into the cold air, and the sound of their calls beneath the water, create a kind of music that is utterly unlike anything else on Earth. A cold, gray music, heard by no one but themselves and the sky. Patient and cold, and quietly extraordinary. The jellyfish. The jellyfish is one of the oldest creatures on Earth, a form of life that has existed essentially unchanged for more than 500 million years. It predates fish by hundreds of millions of years. It predates the dinosaurs. It predates almost everything. And in all of that time, it has remained a creature of extraordinary simplicity and extraordinary grace, a bell of translucent tissue, trailing long, delicate tentacles, pulsing through the water in the most ancient of rhythms. The jellyfish has no brain, no heart, no lungs. It is 95% water. It experiences the world through a diffuse network of nerves that register light and gravity and chemical signals, and responds to these signals by pulsing, drifting, feeding, spawning. It does not think in any sense we would recognize. It simply is. It pulses, it drifts, and in its drifting, in the ancient, mindless, endlessly repeated pulse of its bell, there is something that is, paradoxically, among the most calming sights the ocean offers. The jellyfish does not worry. It does not plan. It does not wish it were somewhere else. It pulses through the water, now, as it has always done, as it will always do, for as long as oceans exist. The manatee. In the warm, shallow coastal waters and river estuaries of the tropical Atlantic and Caribbean, the manatee drifts. It is a large, gentle animal, sometimes called a sea cow for its slow, bovine grace, that spends its days grazing on seagrass and aquatic vegetation, surfacing every few minutes to breathe, and resting in the warm water. Manatees rest by sinking slowly to the bottom, where they remain for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, their enormous bodies gently suspended just off the sand, before rising slowly to the surface for a brief breath. They are the original pace of patience. They move slowly, at walking pace, or slower, and they spend a significant portion of every day in this semi-conscious, bottom-resting state. They are warm-blooded and warm-water animals, and they gather in spring-fed rivers and warm-water outflows in large, Sociable groups during the cooler months, floating together in the warm water with a companionable ease that is deeply restful to observe. Large, slow, warm, and deeply gentle. There is nothing in the manatee's nature that is not, in some way, restful. The kelp forest, off the coasts of California and other cold, nutrient-rich waters around the world, giant kelp grows to heights of 30 or 40 meters in a few months, growing faster than almost any other organism on Earth. In a mature kelp forest, the fronds filter the sunlight so that only a dappled, shifting green-gold light reaches the floor, and the effect is of being inside a very gently moving cathedral. The kelp sways in the current, all of it together in long, slow sweeps, and the fish that live among its fronds move with the sway, hanging in the moving water, facing into the current. Sea lions torpedo through the kelp in play, spiraling around the stems in quick, joyful movements, then settling on the bottom for a rest. A Garibaldi, the bright orange fish that is the official marine state fish of California, moves slowly through the kelp, its color extraordinary against the greens. And on the surface above, the kelp canopy sways in the swell, and the light moves across the ocean floor in slow, shifting patterns, and everything in the forest moves with the long, slow rhythm of the sea. The horseshoe crab. On the sandy beaches of the Atlantic coast of North America, on certain warm nights in late spring, an ancient migration takes place. Horseshoe crabs, creatures that have existed virtually unchanged for 450 million years, emerge from the water in vast numbers to spawn at the tide line. They are not true crabs. They are more closely related to spiders and scorpions, and their armored, brown, dome-shaped bodies are unlike anything else on a beach. They move with a slow, deliberate, dragging motion, pulling themselves up the sand on their many legs, and they have no sense of urgency. They have been doing this for 450 million years, through every extinction, every change in coastline, every warming and cooling of the globe. They spawn in the moonlight, their eggs tiny and green, and then they turn and return to the sea, dragging themselves back down the sand in the same slow, deliberate motion, ancient, patient, utterly unchanged, going on as they have always gone on, under whatever moon is overhead. The narwhal, again, in the cold, dark waters below the Arctic ice, the narwhal dives. Its body is long and pale, its tusk spiraling ahead of it as it descends through the blue-black water toward the bottom. It dives deep, sometimes past 1,000 meters, seeking fish and squid in the cold, dark below the ice. Its heart slows as it descends, conserving oxygen, and its body relaxes into the pressure. And at depth, in the dark, it hunts and feeds, and then begins its slow, controlled ascent back toward the surface. It surfaces at a breathing hole, crack in the ice barely large enough for its head, and breathes in the cold Arctic air in a quick, soft exhalation. And then it sinks again, slowly, into the dark. The narwhal's world is ice and dark and deep, cold water, and it is entirely at home in it. Its long tusk moves through the water in front of it like a compass needle, and wherever it points, the narwhal follows, patient and pale and utterly at home in the cold. The abyssal worm. On the floor of the deep ocean, in the sediment of the abyssal plain, polycate worms, bristle worms, live their entire lives in the ooze. They are small, a few centimeters long, and they move through the sediment in slow, barely perceptible motions, processing it for the organic material it contains, leaving tiny, delicate trails in the soft surface of the seafloor. In a square meter of abyssal sediment, there might be dozens of these worms, invisible from above, unknown to science until deep-sea sampling began, living their complete and ancient lives in the dark. They're not glamorous. They're not dramatic. They're simply alive, in the simplest possible way, in the darkest possible place, with the most complete possible patience. And in that complete, unassuming patience, they are among the most restful creatures imaginable. They do not need anything more than the sediment and the dark and the slow work of processing what falls from above. They are entirely, perfectly sufficient. The ocean at 3 a.m. It is 3 a.m. somewhere on the ocean. The surface is dark and still, or dark and gently rolling. The stars are out, or clouds cover them. A ship moves through the water at a slow, steady pace, and behind it, the wake glows briefly with disturbed bioluminescence, and then fades. Below the surface, 1,000 meters down, a lanternfish hangs in the water column, motionless, spending the dark hours of its day in the deep before it rises at dusk for the vertical migration. Deeper still, a vampire squid drifts with its arms spread, collecting marine snow in the patient way it has always collected it. On the seafloor, a sea cucumber moves a fraction of a centimeter across the ooze, and 3,000 meters below that, in the hadal zone of a deep trench, an amphipod moves across the sediment with its quick, efficient motion, indifferent to the extremity of its world. The ocean is going on, in every layer, in every depth, in every darkness. It is always 3 a.m. somewhere in the ocean, and at 3 a.m, in the dark, the ocean is peaceful. The ocean is always peaceful. The ocean does not know anything but going on. The giant Pacific octopus, in the rocky, cold waters of the northern Pacific, the giant Pacific octopus, the largest octopus species in the world, makes its home in a den among the rocks. Its arms extend outward from the den entrance, tasting the water for chemical signals, feeling the rock surfaces for information about what is nearby. The octopus is extraordinarily intelligent. It can open jars, navigate mazes, recognize individual human faces, and play. It has a short life by the standards of many creatures, 3 to 5 years, and it spends much of that life in its den, reaching out to explore the world with its long, sensitive arms, rather than venturing into the open water more than necessary. When it sleeps, it changes color. Its skin cycling through patterns of red and brown and white in rapid, rhythmic flashes, the way a sleeping mind cycles through its own private imagery. The giant Pacific octopus, dreaming in its den, in the cold, dark water of the northern Pacific, its arms curled loosely, its eyes closed, its enormous, intelligent mind somewhere far from the rock, moving through whatever deep-sea dream it has made for itself in the dark. The polar night. Above the Arctic Ocean, in the deep winter, there is no sun. The polar night lasts for months, weeks, and weeks of complete darkness above the ice, the stars visible at noon, the moon moving in slow circles overhead, and below the ice, in the dark water, the Arctic Ocean goes on as it always has. Ringed seals rest at breathing holes in the ice, surfacing every few minutes to breathe, and then sinking back into the dark. Narwhals move below the surface in their slow, deliberate way. Arctic cod school in dense masses in the water beneath the ice, feeding on the tiny organisms that live in the brine channels within the ice itself. Polar bears rest on the ice above, their white fur almost invisible in the moonlight, their breath steaming in the cold. The entire Arctic is dark and cold and still, and yet it is alive, teeming with life adapted to the dark, going about its quiet business in the absence of the sun. The polar night is not absence. It is simply a different kind of presence, dark and cold and alive, the coral spawning. Once a year, on a night in late summer, the coral reefs of the tropical ocean perform one of the most extraordinary collective events in the natural world. Triggered by the full moon and the temperature of the water, coral polyps across vast stretches of reef simultaneously release their eggs and sperm into the water. A snowstorm of tiny pink and white bundles rising through the dark water toward the surface. It happens at night, and it happens all at once. A synchronized release that turns the water above the reef into a slow, upward blizzard of pink, a drift of life rising toward the moon in complete silence. The bundles, called gametes, rise slowly, gently, spinning in the slight current, finding one another in the dark water and beginning the process that will eventually, if all goes well, create new coral polyps that will settle and grow and become part of the reef. It is a collective dream, dreamed by the entire reef all at once, a slow, pink, silent uprising of life toward the light, in the warm, dark water of the tropical night. The deep again, and always the deep. Always the deep ocean, patient and dark and alive and unhurried. While everything on the surface rushes and makes noise and marks time, the deep continues at its own pace. The abyssal currents turn their slow loops. The marine snow falls. The creatures of the midnight zone drift and glow in the absolute dark. The sea floor accumulates its fraction of a centimeter of sediment per millennium. The glass sponges grow their lattices of silica by an infinitesimal fraction each year. The ancient sharks cruise through the cold in long, slow arcs. The tube worms sway in the warm current of the hydrothermal vents, and the hadal amphipods move across the very bottom of the world with the same quick, efficient motion they have always had, indifferent to the fact that they are living in what would be, for any other creature, an impossible place. Life in the deep does not know impossibility. It knows only what is. The dark, the cold, the pressure, and the quiet. And in that quiet, it thrives. It has always thrived. It will always thrive. In the patience of the deep, something lives that nothing can disturb. The tide. At the edge of the ocean, where the sea meets the land, the tide goes in and the tide goes out. It has done this every day, twice a day, for as long as the moon has orbited the earth, for more than 4 billion years. The tide is the oldest rhythm on the planet, older than life itself, driven by the gravitational pull of the moon on the ocean's water. In a 12-hour period, the sea rises up the beach and then retreats, leaving behind its rack line of seaweed and shells and small creatures and foam. And then it comes back, covering it all again, and retreats again. This has happened roughly 3 trillion times in the history of the Earth. 3 trillion tides. Each one exactly like the last, and each one different, shaped by the wind and the weather and the position of the moon. The tide comes in, and the tide goes out. It has always done this. It will always do this. And there is nothing more constant, nothing more rhythmic, nothing more reliably, quietly patient than the tide. The sea at dusk. As the sun sinks toward the horizon and the sky turns from blue to orange to deep purple and finally to black, the sea undergoes a transformation. The surface, which has been bright and lively in the day, begins to settle and darken. The waves, if they have been high, tend to ease in the evening calm. The birds that have been working the surface, the gannets diving, the petrels skimming, settle now and rest. The dolphins that have been bow-riding ships or playing in waves return to deeper water for the night. The surface of the sea grows quieter and darker, reflecting first the orange of the setting sun, and then the purple of the deepening dusk, and then nothing but the stars. And below, the lanternfish begin their ascent. Millions of tiny, luminous creatures rising through the water column toward the surface as the light fails, beginning their nightly feeding at the surface. The sea at dusk is a moment of transition from the busy, sunlit world to the dark, quiet world of the night ocean. A moment when everything slows and settles and prepares for the long, dark rest. The deep breathing. Far below the surface, the ocean breathes, not in the way we breathe, but in its own vast, slow, continuous way. The deep currents circulating, the marine snow falling, the creatures drifting up toward the surface at dusk and sinking again at dawn, the thermal plumes rising from the hydrothermal vents, the cold, dense water sinking at the poles and beginning its 1,000-year journey around the planet. The ocean breathes in cycles that dwarf the human lifespan, in rhythms that cannot be heard with human ears, in scales that cannot be fully comprehended by any individual mind. And yet, it breathes continuously, patiently, without pause, and without urgency, and without any need for witness. The deep ocean does not know that anyone is listening to it tonight. It does not know that you are here, resting, thinking of it. But it breathes anyway. It has always breathed, and in the rhythm of that breathing, vast and ancient and utterly unhurried, there's a kind of company, a kind of warmth, even in the cold dark, a reminder that the world is very much larger than any one night, any one worry, any one day that did not go as planned. The ocean breathes, and you breathe with it, slowly, deeply, in the dark. The cephalopod dreams. Down in the deep, in a crevice in the rock, the octopus sleeps. Its skin shifts through colors and slow pulses, pale yellow, then brown, then pale again, then a flicker of red at the tips of its arms. It is dreaming, perhaps, of the hunt, of moving through the water in the dark, its arms spread wide, its chromatophores rippling in camouflage patterns. Or perhaps it is dreaming of something else entirely, something that has no human equivalent, something that is purely and entirely octopus. Whatever it is, the dream moves across its skin in slow waves of color and then settles, and the octopus rests in the deep, eight-armed and ancient and quietly, privately alive. The narwhal pod. Below the ice of the Arctic, the narwhal pod moves in its slow, close-knit group. They are almost touching one another, their pale, mottled bodies barely separated, their movements coordinated without effort, the way schools of fish coordinate, by sensing the movements of the body beside them. Their tusks are visible now and then in the dark water, long spiraling poles that spin slowly as the narwhals turn. They are vocalizing, a low, clicking, trilling conversation that passes between them in the dark. They move together toward a breathing hole in the ice, and one by one they surface, breathing quickly and quietly, and then descend again, and the conversation continues below the ice as they move on. There is something deeply reassuring about the image, the pod of pale whales moving together through the cold dark beneath the ice, talking to one another in the language of clicks and trills, going in the same direction, breathing the same Arctic air, held together by something that needs no name. The deep sea, quiet. And so the deep sea continues. It is quiet down there, not silent, but quiet. The sounds are slow and low and widely spaced. The movements are slow and deliberate and widely spaced. Everything is slower here than anywhere else on Earth. Time itself seems to move differently, not because it does, but because the creatures that live here have calibrated themselves to a pace so different from the surface that it creates, in us, the impression of something outside of ordinary time. The six-gill shark is outside of ordinary time. The glass sponge is outside of ordinary time. The quahog clam that was born in 1499 was outside of ordinary time. They are all of them ancient and patient and perfectly at ease with the deep dark in which they live. And tonight, resting in your own dark, in the warmth and the stillness of wherever you are a little outside of ordinary time too. You have left the rush behind for now. You are here, and still and slowly falling toward sleep. And the deep ocean keeps going, as it always has, as it always will, in the patient dark beneath the world, the deepest place. At the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, there is a place called the Challenger Deep. It is the deepest known point on the surface of the Earth. The pressure there is nearly 11,000 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level. The water temperature is just above freezing. No light has ever reached it from above, and yet it is not empty. Small crustaceans have been found there. Foraminifera, tiny, single-celled organisms with intrashells. Liefherendier, Inturandine, Daturam. Bacteria thrive in the sediment below the seafloor, living on the chemical energy of the rock itself. The deepest place on Earth is alive, not dramatically, not visibly, not in ways that a human eye could easily perceive, but alive in the small, patient, persistent way that life has always been alive in extreme places. Because life, given a foothold, does not give it up. Life, given the dark and the cold and the pressure, makes peace with the dark and the cold and the pressure, and simply goes on, as it always has, as it always will. The humpback whale song. In the warm waters of the breeding grounds, the male humpback whale sings. His song is the longest and most complex in the animal kingdom, lasting up to 20 minutes, and then repeated again and again for hours at a time. The song changes over the course of each season. Males throughout a breeding population all sing a variation of the same song, and as the song evolves and changes, they all follow, updating their version in real time, passing the new phrases from one whale to the next, across hundreds of miles of ocean. The song travels for enormous distances. A humpback's song can be heard by other whales hundreds of kilometers away, and the song itself is extraordinary, deep and resonant at one moment, high and whistling the next, full of slow, repeated phrases that build and circle back on themselves, hypnotic and ancient, and endlessly beautiful. The humpback whale hangs in the blue water, head pointing downward, singing into the deep, and the ocean carries the song in every direction, slow and resonant, into the dark. The ocean floor, resting. The ocean floor is resting. It is always resting in a sense, lying still under the weight of the water above, covered in its fine sediment, dark and cold and patient. The creatures of the seafloor rest on it, in it, beneath it. The sea cucumbers and the brittle stars and the polychaete worms and the amphipods, all going about their slow, quiet lives in the dark. The sediment itself is a record of rest, of millions of years of things falling and settling, of the accumulated weight of all the oceans past. And somewhere in that sediment, there are layers that correspond to events in history. The extinction that killed the dinosaurs left a thin layer of iridium in the deep sea sediment 66 million years ago. The great ice ages are recorded in the ratios of oxygen isotopes in the shells of tiny foraminifera preserved in the ooze. The ocean floor is the most complete historical record on the planet, a slow, dark, utterly patient archive of everything the Earth has ever been. And it rests. It has always rested, patient and dark, and holding everything. The water column. Between the sunlit surface and the dark floor of the deep ocean, there is the water column, that vast three-dimensional space of open water that is itself one of the largest habitats on Earth. In the water column, creatures move vertically as well as horizontally, rising and sinking through layers of temperature and light and pressure, following the rhythms of the deep. The vertical migrations of the deep sea, lanternfish and krill and squid rising toward the surface at dusk and descending at dawn, create a daily pulse in the water column, a rising and falling tide of life that moves in rhythm with the light. And in the deep parts of the water column, where the migrations have passed and the water is cold and dark and still, other creatures hang in patient suspension. The vampire squid spreading its dark umbrella, the fang-toothed fish hovering with its enormous teeth, the siphonophore trailing its long, transparent chain through the black. The water column is full, from top to bottom, with life at every scale. And all of that life moves at its own pace, some of it quick, some of it slow, but all of it in the deep, tending toward the slow, tending toward the patient, tending toward the deep, dark, unhurried peace of the ocean's interior, the midnight zone, again, always. And so we return again to the midnight zone. We always return to the midnight zone. It is always there, always dark, always cold, always patient, always alive. The creatures that live there do not know that they are being thought of tonight. They do not know that their patience is what is needed here. They simply go on, as they always go on, in the dark that is their home. The anglerfish pulses its lure. The vampire squid drifts with its arms spread. The Dumbo octopus beats its fins in its slow, gentle rhythm. The marine snow falls, and far above, in a room that is small compared to the ocean, but feels, tonight, just large enough, someone is breathing more slowly. Someone is letting the day go. Someone is falling, slowly and gently, into the dark. the same comfortable dark that holds the deep sea creatures in their patient, ancient lives. And in that falling, there's nothing to fear. There's only the dark and the slow, and the quiet, and the patient, and the ocean going on. The tide goes out. The tide goes out. It always goes out. And it always comes back. This has been true for 4 billion years, and there is no reason to think it will stop being true. The tide goes out, and the beach is exposed. The wet sand, the pools of water left behind, the weed and the shells, and the small creatures that live at the margins of the sea. And then the tide comes back, and it covers everything. And the creatures that were exposed to the air breathe again through the water. And the sea is as it was, and as it has always been, and as it will always be. The tide goes out. The tide comes in. The ocean breathes. And somewhere in the deep, in the absolute dark of the midnight zone, a comb jelly pulses its rainbow of iridescent light in a brief, beautiful display that no one sees. And then it is dark again, and the dark is complete, and the dark is peaceful, and the dark is enough. The seafloor in the dark. The seafloor in the dark. The abyssal plain, stretching to the horizon in every direction. Though there is no horizon here, only the continuous dark floor of the ocean, flat and still, and covered in its ancient, fine sediment. The brittle stars extend their arms into the water above the floor, each arm no thicker than a pencil, each arm waving gently in the slow current, gathering particles of food from the passing water. A sea cucumber moves its fraction of a centimeter. A polychaete worm processes a particle of sediment. A rat-tail fish moves slowly across the floor, its long, tapering tail trailing behind it, its large eyes seeing nothing in the absolute dark, navigating instead by the pressure waves of its own movement reflected from the floor below. It is the quietest place imaginable, the most still, and in that stillness, life continues, small, slow, patient, and utterly at peace. The demersal zone, just above the sea floor, in the thin layer of water closest to the bottom of the deep ocean, there is a zone called the demersal zone, the benthic boundary layer, where the currents are slowest and the particles of organic matter settle and accumulate. It is here that many of the deep sea's most specialized creatures live. The rat-tail fish, the grenadier, the tripod fish that rests on 3 elongated fin rays on the seafloor, its body held just above the sediment, like a 3-legged stool, facing into the faint current, waiting for food to be carried to it. The tripod fish does not hunt. It waits. It rests its 3 points on the seafloor and faces the current and waits, and what comes to it is what it eats. It can remain in this position for long periods, absolutely still, perfectly balanced on its 3 fin rays, patient in the dark. It is a perfect emblem of the deep sea's philosophy, not pursuit, but patience, not chase, but wait, not effort, but presence. The sea, the dark, the deep. The sea, the dark, the deep. These are the words of this night, and they are words that carry their own weight, their own slow, resonant gravity. The sea, which is older than anything we know and will outlast everything we are. The dark, which is not the absence of light, but simply the presence of something else, of depth, of quiet, of the interior. The deep, which is not distance but dimension, not how far from the surface, but how far from the noise, the rush, the ordinary urgency of days. Tonight, in your resting, You are deep, not in the ocean, but in your own quiet, in the interior of yourself, where things slow down and the noise fades, and there is only the gentle pulse of breathing and the drift of a thought, and the slow, soft descent into the dark that is sleep. The sea goes on. The dark holds everything, and you rest in the patient quiet of the deep, and all is well. The bioluminescent creatures, once more. In the dark water, a creature glows. A brief, soft pulse of blue-green light, and then dark again. And then, from another direction, another pulse. Smaller, dimmer, but unmistakable. And then a trail of light as something moves quickly through the water. A darting fish, or a shrimp startled by some disturbance. The bioluminescence of the deep sea is never constant. It flares and fades and appears from unexpected directions, painting the dark with brief, soft light that is there and then gone. And in the absence of the light, the dark seems deeper, more complete than it did before. But then, the light comes again, from somewhere else, soft and cool and patient, and the dark is less absolute. The creatures carry their own light with them. They have made light from their own chemistry, their own biology, their own ancient adaptation to a world where no light falls from above. They have become the light, and in the dark ocean, they glow, briefly, quietly, beautifully, and go on. The ancient ocean. The ocean is ancient. It is older than the mountains, older than the continents as we know them, older than multicellular life. It formed when the early Earth cooled enough for water to remain liquid on its surface, somewhere around 4 billion years ago, and it has been here, in some form, ever since. In that time, it has seen continents drift apart and collide, mountains rise and erode to plains, ice ages cover the poles and recede, the atmosphere change its composition, the moon grow slowly farther away. It has seen the first single-celled organisms arise in its waters. It has seen the first multicellular life, the first animals, the first vertebrates, the first life on land, every mass extinction and every recovery, the rise and fall of entire lineages of creatures that no longer exist. Through all of this, the ocean has remained, not unchanging, but continuous, a constant presence through 4 billion years of change. Tonight, in its deep and patient dark, it is as old as it has ever been, and as patient and as full of life. And we, resting beside it in our imagination, are the newest thing it has ever held, young and brief and temporary, in the warmest, most welcoming way. The whale descending. The whale tilts its head downward and begins to sink. Its great tail lifts above the surface, a wide, dark fluke, trailing water, and then disappears below the line. The dive begins. The whale descends through the blue of the sunlit zone, through the fading blue of the twilight zone, into the darkening water of the midnight zone. Its body is relaxed, completely relaxed, in the way that only creatures that dive deep can be relaxed. Muscles loose, heart slowing, blood being directed away from the extremities and toward the brain and heart. The pressure increases with every meter. The light fades, and the whale descends into the absolute dark, moving with a slow, powerful grace through the water, its clicks preceding it like a lantern, mapping the world below in sound. It is at home here. It is perfectly at home in the dark and the cold and the pressure, as at home here as it is at the surface. The deep ocean holds the whale as easily as the surface does, and the whale descends, and the dark receives it, and everything is quiet. The patient stars. Above the ocean, on a clear night, the stars are out. From the ocean surface, looking up, the stars are reflected in the still water, a second sky below the real one, shimmering slightly with the gentle movement of the swell. Orion sets in the west. The Southern Cross rises in the south. The Milky Way stretches in a pale arc across the sky, dense with the light of 100 billion stars, each one an ancient source of energy in the dark, each one patient beyond imagining. The stars are patient in the way that the deep ocean is patient, in timescales so vast they dwarf anything we can truly comprehend. The stars will be there when the ocean is gone. The ocean will be there when we are gone. And tonight, the ocean reflects the stars, and the stars illuminate the ocean, and everything is in its place, and everything is patient, and everything is going on exactly as it should, in the dark and the silence and the ancient, unhurried now. The seafloor receiving. The seafloor receives. It receives the marine snow. The whale falls. The sediment. The remains of everything that has ever lived above it. It receives them without judgment, without selection, without urgency. It holds them and compresses them and eventually becomes them. And in this way, the seafloor is the memory of the ocean, the record of everything that has happened above it, laid down in order, layer on patient layer. And the creatures that live on the seafloor receive too. The sea cucumbers, the brittle stars, the polychaete worms, the glass sponges, all of them gathering what falls, taking what is given, processing it, and returning it to the cycle. The deep seafloor is an economy of gifts. Everything is given, and everything is received, and nothing is wasted, and nothing is rushed. And in that slow, patient economy, the deep goes on, as it has always gone on, in the dark, the breathing sea. The sea breathes, not in one breath, but in 1,000, in the rise and fall of the tide, the rhythm of the waves, the slow circulation of the deep currents, the daily migration of creatures up and down through the water column, the seasonal blooming of phytoplankton on the surface, the annual spawning of corals and fish and squid. It breathes in cycles within cycles within cycles, all of them nested inside one another, all of them running at the same time at different speeds. The tide breathes in 12-hour cycles. The seasons breathe in 12-month cycles. The deep currents breathe in 1,000-year cycles. And the ocean itself breathes in cycles of millions of years. The slow pulse of the carbon cycle, the slow drift of the continents, the slow rise and fall of sea levels over geological time. And in all of these nested rhythms, there is a pattern, not random, not chaotic, but deep and ordered and patient, the breathing of something so large that any one lifetime experiences only the smallest fraction of a single breath. And yet, even a fraction of the ocean's breath is enough to breathe by. Even a fraction is enough to rest in. Even a fraction of the ocean's patience is more than enough for one night. The midnight zone, receiving you. The midnight zone is receiving you, not physically. You are warm and safe, and wherever you are resting is not cold and dark. But in your imagination, in the slow drift of your thoughts as sleep approaches, the midnight zone is there, vast and patient and dark, receiving the weight of your day the way the seafloor receives the marine snow, without judgment, without urgency, without any expectation that you should be different or smaller or lighter than you are. The midnight zone does not ask anything of you. It simply holds. It simply continues. It is dark and cold and patient, and it has been here for 4 billion years, and it will be here long after tonight. And tonight, for this brief, quiet moment, you drift through it in your imagination, weightless and held and perfectly at peace. The comb jelly, glowing. In the dark water of the deep ocean, a comb jelly pulses. Its iridescent rows of cilia beat in slow, coordinated waves, and as they beat, they scatter the faint bioluminescence of the deep into a shimmering, shifting rainbow that runs along the length of its body. The colors come and go, blue, then green, then a faint gold, then blue again, in a rhythm so slow and so continuous that it seems less like a display and more like breathing. The comb jelly does not know it is beautiful. It is not trying to be beautiful. It is simply beating its cilia to move through the water, and the light happens as a consequence. A beautiful side effect of simply doing what it has always done. In this way, the beauty of the deep ocean is almost always incidental, a consequence of life, not a performance of it. The creatures glow because glowing is what they do. The siphonophore trails its gossamer beauty through the dark because trailing is how it lives. And the comb jelly pulses its rainbow because beating its cilia is how it moves. Beauty in the deep is simply life going on, and life going on in the deep is always beautiful. The last deep thought. The deep ocean asks nothing of you. It does not need you to understand it, or marvel at it, or thank it for its patience. It simply goes on as it has always gone on in the dark. The creatures that live there go on. The currents go on. The marine snow falls. The bioluminescence glows. The ancient sharks cruise in their long, slow arcs. The tube worms sway. The seafloor receives. And far above, on the surface of the sea that covers more than 70% of this planet, the night ocean breathes in the slow swell and the gentle roll of water, and the stars reflect in it, and the moon pulls it in its ancient rhythm, and the whole vast, patient, dark, luminous, living world of the deep goes on below, as it has always gone on, holding everything, asking nothing, patient without limit, deep without end. The anglerfish, waiting. In the deep, the anglerfish waits. Her lure pulses, soft, rhythmic, patient, pulse, dark, pulse, dark. A tiny clock in the deepest night. She is not troubled. She is not hurried. She is not waiting for anything that she's worried will not come. She simply pulses her light in the dark, and the dark holds her, and the lure glows, and the ocean is quiet and complete, and the anglerfish is entirely, perfectly, and peacefully herself. The deep sea, always. The deep sea is always. It is always dark. It is always cold. It is always patient. It is always alive. And tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts grow softer, and the day recedes and sleep reaches its gentle hands toward the edges of your mind, the deep sea is there, not far away, not inaccessible, but present in your imagination in the way that all vast, quiet things are present when you need them. The comb jellies glow. The vampire squid drifts. The marine snow falls. The Dumbo octopus beats its fins in its slow, gentle rhythm. The ancient shark cruises through the cold. The seafloor receives, and you drift. And the deep holds you. And the dark is not frightening, but simply the dark. The same old dark that the ocean has always known. Full of patience, full full of life, full of the slow and luminous and utterly unhurried going on of everything. And the midnight zone continues, and the abyssal plain rests, and the comb jelly glows, and the tide goes out, and the tide comes in, and the ocean breathes, and the deep is quiet, and the dark holds everything, and you rest, the deep ocean, far below the surface of the sea, where sunlight has never reached and never will. There's a world of extraordinary stillness. The water here is cold and heavy, pressing down from above in a silence so complete that it has its own texture. This is the deep ocean, the midnight zone, the abyssal plain, the least explored place on Earth, and the most patient